Welcome. So sustainable finance. I'm here to tell you a little bit about what it is. Feel free to ask any questions, put it in the chat, and we'll handle a bunch of them at the end. But I'm going to go quickly through what we have to tell you a little bit about what sustainable finance. So I'm going to do a poll real quick to see how many of you know what is oikos and get a sense of who we are. It's a nonprofit group. The idea is to transform education by empowering students through sustainability, management, and education. And it's all across the world, which I'm very happy to say, but it's been around for over 30 years. So it's pretty cool. I've just been involved with it for the past 3 years, and I'm helping with sustainable finance programming. The timeline is that it was founded in St. Gallen first and has moved across Europe. So it's interesting to see about 2/3 of people in our organization, in our group today, know about it. So that's cool. And what do we do? There's a lot of programming around leadership development, transforming education, and hosting community and sustainability issues. One of these being around sustainable finance. So more details here if you want to check it out. I'll provide the presentation to you afterwards so you can learn more. So we're here to talk about sustainable finance, and at Oikos International, we have built a toolkit of available resources for you to learn more. And there's an invitation here in this video for you to join us if you'd like to participate in developing these toolkits and developing content, recordings, etc., similar to this, and helping teach students about what sustainable finance is. What is the website? Has the ability to organize events, write on hot topics, interview stakeholders, do content creation, educational programming. I'll share with you this so you can see more, and then we can discuss further. But let's get into what is sustainable investing. I think it can be a pretty complicated topic because there's a lot of acronyms that come into it. 3 very common ones that I hear all the time when it comes to sustainable investing is SRI, ESG, and CSR. And depending on who you talk to, these can mean different things. So it's helpful to understand what the acronyms are and understand that they fall broadly into the area of sustainable investing, but then remember that there are differences between each of these. And we'll go into a little bit about what they mean. But generally, we can think of sustainable investing as a spectrum between traditional finance and philanthropy. And in the middle is sustainable investing. Think about it as a responsible investing of like, what are we doing to protect our planet? ESG, thinking about specific factors related to environmental, social, or governance. And then also including impact, where we're trying to make our planet better by specifically targeting specific issues. And there's different resources available out there to help you understand this. I think Morningstar is a really good one. And the way they could break this down is that within sustainable investing, there's sort of 3 big areas. Alignment of values, which is more like the traditional SRI screening. ESG integration, which is looking at specific factors to measure companies and businesses and performance. And then impact or thematic, so investing in specific areas, whether that be solar, gender equality, pay gap, the blue economy, such as that. So a little bit background on what it is. I mentioned that there's this spectrum, right? Where we think about philanthropy, which is impact first, where you as a philanthropist are using your money, you don't care about its return, and you're trying to make the world better in a specific area that you're passionate about. The other side of this is traditional finance, right? Where you're very much focused on risk and return, and impact is not as important. You're more focused on whether this is going to make money. And there in the middle is what sustainable investing is. And it's really transformed over the years. It can go as far back as the 1800s to religious movements. There were specific requirements where they would invest their money. Think about Catholic investing, and where the church would say, okay, we are going to invest in these specific areas. Or Methodists in the United States, where they were saying that we want to invest in, we don't want to invest in slavery. And this has sort of evolved over time, and there's specific movements where this has happened and it's continuing to happen. So the South African apartheid part of the reason why the apartheid in South Africa collapsed was there was a movement around investors to pull money out of the country unless the government was willing to make a change. We're seeing this also with the Me Too movement, where foundations and funds are not investing in companies that have Me Too scandal around gender issues like that. And then also most recently, I think is a good example is around Amazon fires, right? Where a lot of funds and investment pensions have pulled that money out of Brazil because of what the government has been doing there in the Amazon. And you can kind of think of it as this spectrum, right? Between what Andrew Carnegie first did in the United States, where he was very much a railroad man trying to make a living, but he saw that it was his God-given right to have an impact on the world and do philanthropy to make the world better for those who are less fortunate to him. So now Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, the largest investment fund in the world, saying that sustainable investing or stakeholder capitalism is essential to how we run businesses. And that's coming from an individual who's running a for-profit, very capitalistic fund, saying that sustainability has to be involved with it. So where are we going with this? And this is something we'll dive deeper into. It's like the inclusion of risk within our financing. So physical risk from climate change, the transition risk of switching from fossil fuels to renewable energy, and liability risk, where we're looking at regulation that's going to be coming in and forcing businesses to change. And so 3 areas I think you can look out for to learn more about this is around reporting and regulation, right? Within the EU, there's a lot happening around SFDR and the regulations the European Union is putting in place to require businesses to do reporting and regulation. Fiduciary responsibility. So do our pensions have a requirement to consider both the environment and society when they're trying to make a profit for our retirement savings? And also divestment. So do the institutions that we work for, where we go to school, are they invested in oil, gas, non-sustainable areas, and how are they going to pull money out of those sectors? So we can get a little bit deeper into what's going on within the sustainable investing world. Take a look at this graph over here, which just shows a huge and massive growth in the United States when it comes to sustainable investing strategies. And it's really impressive to see like how far we are behind. I'm working in the United States and normally would live in Boston. So when I compare what is going on there to what's going on in Europe, it's constantly amazing to see how far we are behind, but still there's a huge demand for it. So in 2019, almost $1 in $4 globally was considered to be sustainable. That definition may mean different things, and we can talk about greenwashing within that, but still 1 out of 4 is a pretty big number, even to be named sustainable. You have a huge amount of green loans and green bonds being issued. For example, the water bond in the United States is a pretty cool one where they use a vehicle to transform their infrastructure. And I bring this up because we'll talk about this a little bit in the role-playing game. And this is an area that's just going to continue to grow. So 90% of millennials, according to Morgan Stanley, want to be able to invest sustainably. Natixis, or a fund that produces investment vehicles, so 75% of savers want choices when they are considering sustainability. And Nielsen said 75% of millennials consider company values when choosing it. And I think that number is going to be a lot higher within this group, if not 100% in all 3 areas. But globally, these trends continue to be true. And it's something that I don't see that's going to be a fad. So within this topic of sustainable investing, there is a lot of language. And I've included a bunch of the different terms that you can learn more about to share with you here. I think the language is intentionally exclusionary, making it hard for individuals to learn about, and that's a problem within traditional finance. So one way we'll be talking about in the role play is how do we break down these barriers? And I think doing sessions like this to educate students and individuals across the world about what these topics are will be very useful. So sustainable investing kind of falls into these 6 areas of how companies are actively doing it. And you can apply this into your own personal investing in your pension, in thinking about exclusionary screening. So positive and negative. So what are good companies that you want to include? What are bad companies that you want to exclude? Best in class refers to investing in only those companies or those funds that are the best within their area. ESG integration is the inclusion of specific factors like these that I've included below, like climate and environmental risk, energy, water use, human rights, gender, racial diversity, anti-corruption, all of these different things that we can classify and quantify companies and saying, all right, when I make an investment decision, I'm going to consider these specific areas. Impact investing or thematic investing is another really cool area where we're putting our money to work in specific areas that we believe will have an impact on the planet, or in areas that we have a real call for, maybe within gender diversity or inequality. And a cool area to think more about is active ownership and shareholder activism, where you as an owner in a company can petition and lobby these corporations to make change. So you see that happening a lot with the big oil companies right now. Shell, Exxon, BP, their shareholders are actively pushing the company to make changes within their organization to no longer be focused on oil and gas, but to switch to renewable energies. And the question now remains, is this happening fast enough? Are we doing enough as is? And I think this is where us as young leaders in the world have a responsibility to play, to speak up. I'm encouraged by the Green Youth Movement. I'm encouraged by Fridays for Future, by Climate Strike, Extinction Rebellion. All of these activist organizations have finance as a core component of what they're doing. So to me, this is like where we play a role. So I'm including here a lot of really cool resources that you can use to go deeper. These are some resources that I use in the classes that I hope to teach and are part of the toolkit. It's a long list here, so I won't go too far with it, but I think another area where you can learn more about in this topic is around the different frameworks. And these frameworks are what's coming into the regulation that I mentioned within Europe, like the SFDR, the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, is based on these frameworks that exist around Asset Owners Disclosure Project, the Climate Bonds Initiative, the Climate Disclosure Project, S&P Global and the TCFD all have different ways at looking at what sustainability means within different sectors. And believe me, this can be very confusing and overwhelming as a student to learn, or as a young person getting into this, especially if you don't have a background in finance. But what is interesting to me is that within each of these, having an overview or understanding of what the different sectors are and how they define sustainability is going to help you have that conversation better within your own work. Some really cool partners that we have within this, I think that you can check out for further learning and participation are listed here. Island Innovation is a cool one because they have a conference coming up in a month around sustainability in the Global South. The Carbon Literacy Project is another great one if you want to learn about how to incorporate carbon training. SIF, the Sustainable Investment Forum, and they have a European arm as well as a US arm. A buddy of mine runs this Twitter handle for if you want to learn more about SRI events. And Tomorrow Bank is another problem that I'm sure some of you have heard about as an alternative banking solution. And this isn't an endorsement of any of these partners. It's more as an opportunity for you to go and learn more about what is out there. Also, we at Oikos have put together a ton of resources and videos available to you. So this is one that I helped and I'm proud of for organizing around the OI conference. And there's a bunch of different YouTube and articles available for you to learn more. We'll definitely do another conference in the future. So if you want to participate and share what maybe the Green Youth is doing, happy to include you in this space. And finally, I'm going to leave you with this. So what's next? Sustainable investing is a large and growing trend. It's not going to be something that's going to disappear because of the demand from individuals like us, millennials, as well as big investors who want to switch away from just traditional finance. The themes of climate change and racial equity are becoming more and more important, especially as we're seeing how broken our financial system is and how it does need to change. And then finally, there's a expectation from the reporting and regulation side that ESG is going to be integral to how business operates. So with that, I'm going to end this here and stop the recording so you can ask any questions that you might have. I'll put another poll now that you have participated. How aware are you about what is going on in the world of sustainable finance? And no, that's the wrong one. It's just to give an idea of, your familiarity within the field of sustainable finance. And with that, our presentation has concluded. Thank you very much. And I'd love to hear from you all a little bit more about any questions that you might have. Feel free to raise your hand and I can unmute you and give you the camera. And then we'll jump into the role play, which I think will be an opportunity for us all to work on the same issue. Hi, Joel.
Hi. Thanks, Stephen, for the input. Definitely lots of information, especially for a person like me that's not really deep into sustainable finance. But I'm really looking forward to the role play. And yeah, definitely thanks for the input and the information you gave us as a short introduction into the topic.
Thanks, Joel. I appreciate that a lot. What do you do? Tell me a little bit about yourself. And you said that you're not really involved in finance, but do you see it as something that you need to learn about in your roles?
So when it comes to my job, I've studied international business and I'm now working at a developer of at a company that develops mobile games. I don't necessarily see it as important for my job, but I rather am intrigued regarding this topic because of the political implications. And yeah, I think this is definitely a topic where the Green Party can learn a bit more and maybe expand the knowledge that is currently or that the things that we know about sustainable finance. And this is definitely something, or the reason why I'm here today.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're here. And we'll jump into the role play real quick. Anybody else, would you like to comment or do you have any questions about the resources I shared?
Yes, can I intervene to say something?
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, I would like to thank you for an interesting presentation. It was really interesting. And also interesting in this topic because I will write my bachelor thesis about this topic, sustainable finance, but sustainable finance in development countries and maybe some microcredits and micro funding. But it was really interesting. Yeah, really a useful presentation. Thank you very much.
Great, Arjun, I'm glad. And that'll be super interesting to learn more about because within the global south and developing countries, there hasn't been enough done within this space. I could share more resources with you around conservation financing, which is one area where the resource-rich countries are doing this. Like I'm from the Caribbean and Jamaica, and there's a lot of money being directed at the blue economy as a way to protect it in light of climate change and sea level rise, and how it's going to impact our coral reefs and our coastal areas. So something we can talk about further for sure. Okay, I will get us ready. In the meantime, if there's any other questions, let me know.
You can go on, Stephen. I just had one other comment. What is going through my mind when I think of sustainable finance is that we see a lot those ESG standards. So I don't know if everyone knows it, but ESG is for environmental, social, and governance. Yeah. And I think what is also important for us in Germany and in the Green Party is, yeah, you said it as well, Stephen, it is the question of greenwashing. So not just putting a green label on something and then we stay in a in a capitalism system, a capitalistic system, and we're not really getting at the root of all evil, so to say. Just putting some regulations that make, we're Germans are good in regulations, and putting more and more bureaucracy, making processes even harder, and not really getting to the place where we actually want to be. So I mean, I don't have a solution. I'm also not an expert in sustainable finance. It's just something that interests me when I think of it. Of not just doing some green labels and just saying we do everything as we like we did it in the past, but now we have some more standards we have to look out for. But really, like, how can we change a system that sustainable finance really means, okay, it's a financial system that fits to a system, a holistic system that we're aiming for, and that might not be the world of capitalism. But yeah.
Totally understand that, Paula. And I think that's going to be really interesting for people like us, is how we combine the two, where we know we need to build a better planet, but we're also working within this system that's there, and how do we change it? And we're going to do this role play, which is sort of making that issue tougher and harder for you. So I've put in the chat a website that you're going to go to, and you're going to use my login credentials to participate. This is coming from a cool partner of ours called Boston Impact Invest Initiative. And this is an opportunity for you guys to learn a little bit about sustainable finance and role play what's going on, but also discuss your topics within this area. And I'll provide more background on this afterwards. But the idea around this is that integrated capital is how organizations like Boston Impact Initiative which is a place-based racial equity fund, is working to close gaps in the financial system. And they're based in Boston, but this idea applies to where we're in the world, whether it's in Germany, Jamaica, or anywhere else in the global south or global north. And the idea is, how do we break down these walls that the financial system has deliberately put in place to separate the different actors. And we can take a case that we're going to discuss in a second, and we're going to look at all of the different ways that the financial system is defined. And we're going to say, okay, what works best? What are the forms of capital that we're able to use in solving problems? And how can we use them while also having impact, while also having values that are important to us? So has anyone been able to log into the website? Are you able to get on? I can show my screen to give an idea of what we're looking at. Paula, have you been able to get in? Cool. Joel, Arjun, how about you guys?
I was able to join, and like the idea was that we use the exact credentials that you put into the chat, right?
Yes.
Like also correct. Your first name and last name and so on.
Correct.
Okay.
So just to be sure, it's right here, Steven Snyder for first and last. You'll use my email address. That's my personal one in case you need to reach me. I'll email you all from my oikos email address as well. And then the organization is a fellowship that I'm a part of, and they've given us access to this platform. So we'll only use it for this game, and then afterwards we'll have to close it down because it's their property. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using this deck of these deck of cards to learn more about and discuss how we can use the capital system to solve a problem. And the problem that you're going to be discussing is you are a building developer who's interested in using renewable energy, and your idea is using rooftop solar or other renovations in Berlin to make your city more green, right? You have a portfolio of buildings, you're trying to reduce your energy usage, you want to incorporate renewable energy, and you're being financially incentivized to do so. I think this is something that is of political importance to you now, and maybe something that you can bring some of your background in to this space to talk a little bit more about what the topic is. And I'm going to show you which of the cards to select, because we're not going to use the whole hand because it might get a little too complicated, but feel free to take a look at all of the other ones in your free time. So on your window, you're going to do a little star on the deck of cards that you're using. So the ones I want you to use are the funding source. So where are you going to get your money from? The type of capital, like what kind of money are you going to use? The type of entity that you think you should be set up as to achieve your mission of using renewable energy and building development. The stakeholders that are important to this conversation. And finally, the last two cards, which is your impact criteria and impact covenants. And they're both closely related, but I want you to think about the criteria as ways that investors are looking at you, and then covenants are like what you have to do to portray yourself outwardly. We can talk a little bit more about what the difference is after you take a look at the cards. So you'll use the star on funding source, type of capital, the transaction structure. Sorry, not transaction structure. The type of entity, local stakeholders, impact criteria, and impact covenants. So these 6 cards you'll select. And then up at the top, you can press start game, which then just limits your choices. And what is useful about this is that this open soup button on the right-hand side will open up all of the types of funding sources available to you. And when you find a card that's going to be interesting, you're going to pull it over to your hand. And this is what you're role-playing as, to say, my job as the building developer, I'm going to need this type of funding to make this happen. And what you'll do is you'll go through each of these. We'll take some time to quietly review what's going on. Maybe I'll play a little music in the background. And how about that? Any questions from anyone?
Maybe one comment from my side, but please feel free to ask further questions, people. Is that don't worry if you don't understand something. Like I said, I'm not a finance expert, and then it's like the game is US based, so we might not know any type of capital, like every kind of capital and of that, but it should just give you a first overview. So choose the cards you, with the types of funding or whatever you can connect to, you get a glimpse of what it is, and don't stress out if they're like super like many cards, and some of them might sound a little bit confusing. It's the same for me, but we want to like just get an overview of it, and it's maybe also interesting to then talk about the impact.
Thank you, Paula. Yeah, that's a really good point. So this is diving in to the deep end of financial literacy. And I think it will be useful as you learn a little bit more. So let's take 10 minutes to review quietly what we're doing. If you finish up, done, raise your hand, and then we'll know that you're ready. And we'll come back and we'll kind of discuss what your thoughts are on how you would approach the problem.
I would have one more question. Yes.
Go ahead.
When it comes to picking the different cards, do I pick like one card per like type of card, or how, like one card per type of card? And is there like a starting scenario, or can I just like pick the cards which I think fit nicely together?
I think you'll need to pick the cards that fit nicely together. You'll need to pick at least one card per deck, but you'll see that there might be some that would like work complementary together.
Okay. And once I've picked the cards, what will be the next step?
We'll come back together and we'll sort of discuss what your thoughts are on how you would solve the problem.
Okay.
Thanks, Joel. Good question.
She's the one, you're the one, they're the one, we're the one, you're the one, he's the one, she's the one, you're the one, they're the one, we're the one, you're the one, you're the one, you're the one, you're the one.
Hi, Agnes. How about we spend another minute reviewing, and we'll come back together and discuss. So we have 15 minutes together to review together. So at 45, we'll be back. Okay. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed the musical interlude while you reviewed the cards. So tell me, what were you coming across? What thoughts were you coming to while you were exploring this issue, given the the cards available to you? Was it a hard thing to review? Yeah, Joel, go ahead.
It was definitely, like, I would say, a rather difficult thing to review, especially like with all the terms thrown around. And it was also like interesting to understand like the connections between all the different categories and that they all have to work together for something to happen. And this was also like interesting to understand that all the different categories have to work together to like create a good outcome.
Totally. I think that's a key point here to make about how the categories do need to work together. Paula, what are you saying?
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, I'm with Joel. What made it easier for me was that our case with like building sustainable buildings in Berlin, where maybe not just the green energy is an issue, but also the social one, is that in this thematic squad, but not in the economics part, but in the social part, we had a discussion lately with a politician from Vienna telling us what is important to have affordable living in a city, in a big city. And so I had some points in mind that he said. So I was directly looking for those in the cards, like, okay, what sounds a little bit like what he said, what would work well. So I could finance the projects how I want them to be, like not just green and not just profit making, but also social, and that it's more important to get the buildings done and to work and to pay the workers to pay them well, but it's okay to not make big profits out of it. And so with that in mind, I could choose a little bit easier from the many opportunities I have with the cards within the cards.
That's really helpful to bring that prior knowledge in. I want to ask you some of those cards that you picked, because I know that pay equality is one of those impact covenants, and which is very attractive to certain funders within sustainable finance to say, I'm going to pick a project that is known to pay everyone working on it equally. Yeah. What other things were coming up to you in the cards that you had to pick?
In mine, you mean? Or
yeah. What were some that based on what the expert was telling you?
Let's see. Maybe I can share my screen so the others see that as well. Wait. So yeah, I mean, I didn't know those before, but they sounded nicely. Yeah, that it's about like those neighborhoods, because I think that's a big topic for us as young politicians as well, that it's more about thinking about the neighborhoods and not about, oh yeah, I'm doing like, I have my company making money, but what is it, what I'm really doing? And so I get like, I get those stakeholders or those people that give me money that focus on those same things. And then, yeah, of course, as I was saying, it's not like for me, the living sector or real estate, as at least if it's for like most of the people, not the luxury one, shouldn't be not only about profit. So I thought about a non-profit entity where it's more about getting the job done, getting the buildings done, getting them so like affordable and green with energy efficiency and everything. But when this is done, I don't have to make money out of it anymore. I also like the idea of work-owned cooperative. I like that anyways. I think it's nice if you share responsibility and if you integrate people and not making a difference all the time between people that own a company and people that work for the company. So I like this worker-owned cooperative idea. So yeah, as I said, I chose the living wage as a, I don't know if is it the criteria or, well, it was one of the impact things. And then to engage the community, since this is really important in the construction sector, I guess, because it's changing the neighborhood. So you should engage them. Yeah, just some examples and my thoughts on that.
Very useful, Paula. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, community development funds are a very cool funding mechanism that we have in the United States. I'm curious if there are such things in Europe, and also why wouldn't there be if there aren't? That's a question maybe you guys would explore some more of why there's not specific pools of money directed at less like well-off communities to help develop them. Everyone else on the call, what are some things that you may have done differently from Paula, or what are some thoughts from your own backgrounds? Joel, please go again.
Yeah, I think Paula did some good choices and made some good choices. But for me, I think it's also like, I think there are also other important impact criteria and impact governance. For example, I've chosen community engagement and community employment because I think these are like also really important things when it comes to the case that we were given, as I understood it correctly, like building houses in Berlin. I don't know, I think either I overheard it in the beginning or you didn't say it, but I just like heard it after I chose the cards, and I was a bit confused, as you may have seen or heard by my questions. But yeah, when it comes to like building houses in Berlin, I think these are like two very important aspects also to consider besides the things Paula mentioned.
No, that's really helpful. And yeah, this was the case for Berlin, but I'm curious, in your opinion, why are they so important to the context of Berlin? And would it be, if it was anywhere else, would these issues not be as important to you?
I think they are important to Berlin because of the situation that is currently, or the housing market is currently in. I don't know. So at the moment there was like a big campaign organized by the locals to like how is it called in English? Not deprive, like to strip two companies of their ownership and make them publicly owned. Like there was a big campaign organized by the locals to make these
Expropriate is the name. Expropriate.
Yeah, expropriate. To expropriate these two companies and or like all of the bigger companies that are involved in the housing market in Berlin. And I think due to this, it's really important for further projects to involve the local community and give them the sense that these buildings are for them and that these buildings, when the buildings they live in, should also be built with the local community in mind, and also like source the local or like the workers should be sourced from the local labor market, and so on and so on. So I think this is like a really important thing to give the community the feeling of, or like giving the community control over what is done and what is not done.
Very well said, Joel, and thank you, Arjun, for expropriation about the properties. Yeah, this was a story that I've read about as well, and I thought it was unique and something that other large countries around, large cities around the world could take a model from, of how do we deal with the housing problem when you have so many organizations owning buildings that are not lived in, are only there as investment vehicles, and how fair is that? Would anyone else like to jump in and share a little bit about their thought process? We're running up towards the end of our hour together, so I want to give everyone the opportunity to share.
You can also use the chat if you want to. Christopher used it, so maybe Stephen, you also want to comment on that, what he wrote. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, good point. Thanks, Chris, for sharing. I think one of the complicating things around finding the right source of capital is what I mentioned around the language is exclusionary. And so if you don't have a background within this space, it's going to be a lot harder and daunting to learn more about it. But what I like to think is that now you're aware of what the terms are, and you could go deeper into which one applies to this context. For me, what I think about the types of capital that are going to be useful within this is using a line of credit from a bank or a term loan within this, or convertible debt, where you're able to receive funding from an institution, whether it be a bank or a community development fund, and use it directly without having to buy an equity to this. So it's a term, it's going to be something that's going to be paid back, and it's less focused on this profit-making mechanism where stocks or equity are going to be more geared towards. To make that project a reality, though, you do need to have valuable stakeholders that are on board with this. So local government and national government agencies that are willing to guarantee that this project isn't going to fail, right? And then they're able to attract capital that's affordable. That's part of the reason why debt is sometimes not used, is that equity is a lot cheaper to say, if we were to fail, you would own what was lost. Whereas debt, if it was to fail, they would have to sell off the buildings and such. So there's, yeah, some financial understanding that could come and help in with understanding this. One thing that is also interesting within the local stakeholders that I think that can come into this is within the worker services and labor. So if there's like a strong labor union within Berlin, having them involved as part of the project. And another point that I'd make around the impact criteria, these are just some categories that investors look at, but there's other types of impact that might be more important. So do certain minorities have access to these new buildings or that you're being developed? Are there rent control so that it maintains to be an affordable housing? Some issues like those that could come up, and I'm sure you could come up with some other really good ones. Okay, last call. Anybody else? Happy to answer any more questions if they come up after the event. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the little game. And I'll share resources with you that Paula can send around afterwards, the presentation and a little bit more about the game if you want to take a look.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stephen, for preparing everything and for the game. Yeah, thank you for taking the time to talk about this topic with us. And yeah, I'm happy to share everything that you sent Jimmy, and also I think they have your email address now. So for any questions, follow-up questions, they can contact you as well. Also, I mean, for you, it's not that interesting, but for those who couldn't be here, we will share the input talk as well via video, so they can have a look at that as well. And yeah, I will try to also prepare something like a summary in German for those who maybe also couldn't be here for this event because of the language barrier, but this will take a little bit of time since I'm quite busy at the moment. But yeah, just for you to know. Yeah, then thanks, Stephen, for being here, or like actually we're in your Zoom space, so thanks that we could be here tonight, or for at least for us it's night, for you not, I guess. And yeah, also for everyone that is from the Grüne Jugend, I guess maybe everyone, I don't know. You will hear from us in our Telegram groups. What is up next? I think on Friday we have the next event. So yeah, we're happy to see you there, and any follow-up of this event will also be in the Telegram group.
Great. Thank you so much, Paula. And thank you so much for the opportunity to share a little bit about what we're doing with the toolkit at Oikos International. And yeah, happy to chat with you more about the topic. All right, take care.
Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
See you
Take
next
care.
time.
Bye-bye.
Take care.